I'm very pleased to be able to have this chance to listen to Earl Morihara talk about the work that he's been engaged in, translating the New Testament and the Old Testament, making it available to Pidgin speakers, thinking about language and the domain of religion, spirituality, and then also just thinking more about Pidgin in all of its forms and the ways that it can speak to different audiences for different purposes. So I'm glad to see people coming in. I know some of you guys might not be so familiar with the Pidgin Coup or the Charlene Sato Center, so I'll just say a little bit about us. And so these meetings we normally have at the University of Hawaii at Manoa twice a month, and the space is behind the Korean Studies Center, for those of you who want to know, in the temporary portable buildings. And basically it's an opportunity for people to gather to talk about Pidgin language advocacy, research, education, and outreach. So I invite you guys to look up the things we've been doing on the Charlene Sato website, which we can put in the chat. And to stay tuned, we also have a mailing list. So if you want to be on that and you're not, we can add, maybe Kristen can add in the chat the email for us to get your email. And in April, we're gonna have another event like this where we're gonna debut our website that we've been working on that has lots of outreach projects. Ooh. And some pretty cool multimodal stuff around Pidgin and other languages in Hawaii. Yeah. So stay tuned. I know Kent was willing and able to talk a little bit about the Sato Center, just to give us a little more orientation for some people who are new to us.
Oh, okay. So Sato Center, I don't know, physically, well, I'm there right now. I've been here for a whole year. I've not left the Sato Center at all. No, I'm kidding. Oh, Earl, first of all, that ilimale behind me, that's for you. Virtual ilimale. Okay. So let's see. So Sato Center started, oh gee. Actually, you know what? Actually, let me go back to this. Earl, you were a student here you were in a department, right? In 1980s?
Well, as an undergraduate, I was there from
you were undergraduate.
Pretty much 81 to 86. Then when Japan came back, and then from 1990 to 93, I was the when MA student in the program.
Was it ESL yet at that time?
Yeah, ESL at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then you knew Charlie.
Oh, I took all her classes. Yeah, or like her shadow. Like, oh, I'm gonna follow you, Charlie. Take all your classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Graham Crooks was, I think, was only 20 years old back then, maybe 15 or something. He was young boy at that time.
Joel, were you there too?
Yeah, I was there 86 to 89, and I took all of the sociolinguistic classes with Charlie and Karen Watson-Gagale at the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so it's like you guys look so young yet, yeah.
Plain living. You should try it, Kent. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so going back, so the Sato Center is named after Dr. Charlene Sato, who passed away in 1996. It was basically Jeff Siegel and Diana Eads who had gotten the Sato Center set up basically before they.
Oh, Uncle Kent.
We're on. Hello.
Hi, Uncle Kent. Can you pause it for a minute?
No, we're talking to the group right now. Thank you. Sorry about that. Throw me off. Sorry.
Throw you off, yeah.
So Sato Center started. Then we had already had the Pidgin Coup by then. The Pidgin Coup started about, I think it was in 97. I think it was this very small group at the start there. And then Dr. Diana Eads was in the SLS department. She had taken Charlie's place. And then when Diana left, then Christina came in and has been here yeah, since. So there's a little brief. Is that enough? I think in that time it went from ESL department to SLS department.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I see a whole bunch.
Yeah,
Hi,
lots
Chuck.
of
And I see him from Japan too. Isamu was, yeah, hi Isamu. Sorry, I'm just excited right now. to see you.
So for you guys out there, the plan was, really to have a talk story session, which is a Hawaiʻi cultural practice of, conversation, but getting to know each other in a way that is casual, but engaging. Yeah. So Zoom is a challenge for that, but really I asked Earl some questions before, and he's just going to talk a little bit first, but after that, we're going to open it up, and it's a chance to raise questions, to tell your story in relation to what he's talking about today. So we really do invite your participation as much as possible. All right, Earl, you got the floor.
Okay, mahalo plenty, Christina. And I was telling her, hey, Christina, this one the kind Pidgin Coup advocacy program. So I gotta speak Pidgin, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna speak Pidgin, and obviously I gotta speak standard English, but before this I could speak Pidgin. But long story short, 86 I went graduate undergrad, and I was ready for go to Japan for teach English, but I was in this Christian group, and then the leader said, this visiting professor like talk story with one local guy, and you're the most local guy, so we'll go talk story. And that professor, visiting professor, is Joe Grimes, is here, and he came with his wife, Barbara Grimes, and not to be confused with his daughter-in-law, Barbara Grimes, who's married to his son Chuck. But Barbara was the editor that time of the Ethnologue. I don't know if you guys know of this publication, the Ethnologue, right? It tracks all the known languages for government policy purpose and for translation purpose. So she come Hawaii, she said, hey, get this like dialect. What is this? Hawaii Pidgin or Hawaii Creole English. So anyway, we was talking story, we met, and we said, hey, we could translate a couple verses. And was translating that. The bugger was speaking to me, and I said, wow, man, I go in Japan, and they went back Ithaca, New York, Cornell University. And then I guess they felt called to go come back. And I don't know too many people, maybe you guys know, but they came back. They never lived Honolulu side. They went go move Makaha because they wanted to immerse themselves in the Pidgin speaking community, not just for live there because Makaha nice, but they wanted to learn Hawaii Pidgin. So they did 1987, from 1987 all the way to 2000. There was, making connections in the community, learning the language, and translating the Bible, the New Testament part, right? And was POW. 2000 was the Project POW. So the Jesus book came out from 2000 up until recent. Just think, 95,000 copies. They're out there. People get them, and I don't know how many people use it. Maybe stay coffee table can copy, but I know people using them because we get stories all the time. Hey, I get the Jesus book and everything else, but that's how it started way back when. And then for me, came back from Japan. I get my master's at the University of Hawaii. And then I got more involved in being one of the translators on the translation team. And then of all things, Joel went go kick me out of the school I was teaching. I think I was teaching too much Hawaii Pidgin. So he said, hey, Earl, go find another job. Not really, I was just joking. But I became a pastor, and I had more time for help the project. And then from that time, if you guys know the Bible, New Testament is Greek, and then the Old Testament is different language, Hebrew. But Joe, he's so smart, him and his wife, so they know Hebrew too. So they said, you know what, we're going to stay, and we're going to finish the whole Bible. I said, what? Yeah, they're going to finish the whole Bible. So from 2000 all the way to 2020, all those years, they were working with so many translators from all across Hawaii, Kauai, Big Island, Maui, this island, West Side, or Manalo side. It's all these guys come together, and then we powered the whole thing. And when Joe went back to the mainland, we went Maki, right? I was thinking, this project not power yet. the Hawaii Pidgin, no, we don't learn Pidgin writing style, you know, it's all oral. And so we have to figure out how to write them. And forgive me, Kent and Christina, we get the auto orthography. I was in the program trying to learn the auto orthography. It was hard for me to learn them. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, we had to make decision how to render the language. So we make them almost like English, but not English, so that people can read them, but still yet hard to read. The people that need the translation. And Christina, when we read your paper on the Pidgin Coup, you get about 600,000 people that speak or understand Hawaii Pidgin. But no more that kind of intelligibility, at least I never read one recently, intelligibility study. In fact, I even can say that word good, right? Intelligibility study. For say, how many of those guys can really understand standard, English, right? Because the things of the spiritual stuff, that's deep stuff that. And so we don't like people just understand here. We like them understand real deep in their heart. And so we figured, you know what? This translation gotta not just go written, gotta go oral, gotta have an audio. And the project not power even after that, because gotta get them out into people that really need them, for hear that the good news, and then for understand them real deep. And so that's why when we get in touch with this guy that stay in this group right now, his name is Eric Stapleton with Faith Comes by Hearing. And they go around the world and they audio record Bibles that for many of the languages, it's oral kind of language, right? So I would contact them. They said they're interested in partnering up with us in Hawaii for do this. And the one thing led to it in the other, and we couldn't stop. In fact, they sent one couple from Faith Comes by Here, and they're gonna be here. They're here already, and we went get the auditions going. We get the place all set up, and it's gonna be 8-week project. For we're not gonna do the whole thing. We're just gonna do the Jesus book part. That's the New Testament part, and it's multiple voice recording. So get plenty choke people that stay involved with get kind of people that can talk, well-known people in the community. And so that's where the project is right now. We're hoping that we get this project going. And I think it's somebody here, Christina, that I went tell, go come and tune into this Pidgin Coup, because he one guy they're using him in the prison ministry. And he get, he get to tell real stories about how he uses them and how communicate way more effective than somebody just talk standard English, because a lot of the prisoner guys incarcerated, they don't talk standard English. And you talk standard English to them, they just go over the head. But when you talk Hawaii Pidgin, the eyes open, you know what I mean? Wow, you're talking my language. So anyway, I don't like talk too much more. I think that's basically the project. And I can talk about, all other needs of the project, because we don't get all the audition power yet. You get more roles fulfilled and other stuff we'll do. So anyway, Christina, that's my spiel.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if we should play some of it now.
Shoots, that's good. Get one sample that she can play. Everybody know the Kanaka Vai Vai story. At least you know the song, yeah, Kanaka Vai Vai. So go play them, Kristen.
Hold on.
Ozzy, hey.
Wait, Kristen, ask the promo that. Go get the Kanaka Vai Vai story. That's the promo. Go show that.
It's the
after
audio only, yeah.
This one?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Matthew, tell about.
Yeah, it's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matthew, tell about Jesus. Matthew 19:16-30. And you know what? One guy go by Jesus and tell.
Hey, teacher, can I ask you one question? What good thing I gotta do for me live to the max forever?
Jesus tell.
How come you ask me about the good thing? Only get one guy that stay good for real kind. That's God. If you like live to the max forever, you know the rules from God. Go do them then.
The guy tell.
What rules?
Jesus tell.
No go murder nobody. No go fool around behind somebody's back. No rip off nobody. No bully any kind about nobody. Show respect for your mother and father. Get love for the other guy, just like you get love for you.
The young guy tell.
Oh, teacher, I already do all that stuff. What more I gotta do?
Jesus tell him,
If you like come perfect kind, go sell all the stuff you get and give the money to the people that no more nothing. Then come with me for be my guy. And guarantee you gonna get the real kind rich stuff in the sky.
the young guy hear that. He come real sad. And then he go away cause he get plenty rich stuffs that he no like sell. Jesus tell his guys,
You see that? I tell you guys this too. That's why hard for one rich guy get God in the sky for come his king. I tell you guys one more time. More easy for one camel go through the puka inside one needle than for one rich guy forget God in the sky for his king.
his guys hear that. And that blow their mind. They tell,
Hey, if that's how stay, then who can get out of the bad kind stuff they stay in?
Jesus look straight at them and tell,
No more nobody that can do them, but only God. He the one that can do them.
then Peter tell,
Hey, boss, try listen. Us guys will give up everything we get for go with you. What we gonna get for that?
and Jesus tell,
That's right. And I tell you, out of a real kind guy, when everything come new and when I sit on top my awesome throne, you guys that stay my guys right now, going to sit down on top 12 thrones and be the judges for the people inside the 12 Israel Ohanas. Whoever give up his houses, his brothers, his sisters, his father and mother, his kids, his land, because he know who me, Bombay, they're going to get 100 times more plenty, plus they're going to live to the max forever. Gonna get plenty guys that make them for them come first, but Bombay, they're gonna come last. And get plenty guys that make them for them come last, but Bombay, they're gonna come first.
That's good.
All right.
It's
There you
here.
go.
It's available.
Oh, you can play that Bombay, but I figure most people they know that story, and I think had 4 characters, so people can hear a different voice, and that's what we were gonna make. Just for give one sample for people who who ask like, hey, how gonna be? That's how gonna be, but that's gonna be it for the for the whole the New Testament part of the Good and Special book, yeah, the Jesus book part.
Let me just invite people to post questions in the chat or to, just chime in, yeah? Tell us what you're thinking about, what you're wondering about, if you have.
Earl, this is Joel. If we know people who might be interested in being voice artists or vocal artists, whatever you call them, where do we send them?
Okay, just email Hawaiʻi Pidgin Bible. And you know how to spell pigeon, yeah? People spell them wrong all the time. Hawaiʻi Pidgin Bible @gmail.com.
Okay.
And then I go email them the audio recording script, the audition script, and then the availability form, because they can tell, hey, maybe we tell, hey, you're going good speaker, but maybe your window only small for record, right? So we get that. But yeah, and then also, thanks for asking the question, Mahalo Plenty, Joe, because we're looking for the kind, we call them proof listener. Like, what is proof listener? Yeah, the guys, is that the quality control guys, yeah? So, the guy's gonna read and go, hey, that sounds too howly that, or you miss one word, or the prosody, yeah? How maybe they're reading them like standard English style. So, I mean, hopefully by the time we cast them, they're gonna know already, but all that kind of quality control stuff we need. So anyway, yeah, if you know people, Joe, you choke connected in the community. Some people that can speak brother, let us know. Hawaiʻi Pidgin Bible @gmail.com.
Earl, you mentioned that I think Bula Eastman is here. And I think it would be really fascinating to hear from him if he's willing to share how he's using these resources. Bula, are you there?
Aloha avakia, kako. Can everyone hear me?
Very
I forget
faint.
you, Bula. Gotta make them better, your audio.
Yeah.
Right.
You sound like you're far away.
Hold on. I'm on my laptop.
Bula on radio guy, he should know all that. Come on, Bula.
Sound like you're in Makaha, Bula. Come on.
Just a second. Hold on here. Okay, let me try this. Can you hear me better now?
Yep.
So much better. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I had to lift the cover up. I've got two monitors. Anyway, aloha wake kako. How's it, everybody? I'm gonna take off my white lips, put on my local kind, because I did go to the school on top of the hill called Kapalama Heights, otherwise known as Kamehameha Schools. So we can all bow down and say warriors in the house. But I did graduate from the University of Hawaii. I'm blessed to be part of this project. I'm telling you, it's such an exciting time to do what we're doing now, because being a pastor also, I've been in the prison ministry for about 11 years now. And everybody needs to have a hope in their life. And the only future and hope that I know is Jesus Christ. But when you can talk to someone in their native tongue, the blessings that we all have here is we can play both sides of the fence. We can talk like this when we got to, but we can also say we need to pontificate on greater things before us, on opportunities presented, so we know how to communicate effectively. But some people that we know are not trapped, but they can only communicate in Pidgin. So when you talk in the prisons, many times it's kind of frustrating because they're not in a very nice place. It's very dark, it's ugly. I preached all over this state in the facilities. I've gone to Arizona 29 times in the last 10 years to preach to the 1,700 men that are incarcerated there. The power of the spoken word in Pidgin is so incredible. It's like when the light goes on in the room. I'll give you just one example because I know it's a short meeting and I don't want to preach. I was in Halava at a chapel service. I started preaching out of the Jesus book, the predecessor to the good and special book. And all of a sudden, this guy in the front, it's a room that accommodates maybe 30 people, but we had 60. Cover your ears, but in prison, we call that butts to nuts. We're sitting pretty tight. And I'm crazy because I take my wife, Lady Lynn, she ministers with me in the prisons, but we're covered by the blood. So I'm preaching in Pidgin. All of a sudden, this guy jumps up out of the chair, says, Jesus, Keakua, I hear you, I hear you. And he falls to the ground and he starts weeping. Of course, I have to sit him up in the chair. I said, hey, they're going to throw you back into the hole if you act like that. He said, but I hear Jesus. I said, no, it's Pastor Bull, but Jesus talking through me. But you see, people, when they understand what is being said, the light goes on. And not only, I want to share this with everyone because of your linguistics background, not only is it people of Hawaiian ancestry. You say, what the pastor just say? I preach in Arizona and I have a radio program both here in Honolulu and also in Arizona 5 nights a week at 9:30 p.m. 99.5. Hey, that's a free plug. It's called Free Inside. Local pastors talking story about Jesus. We have a large Hispanic population in Arizona. They listen and they can understand the Jesus book also. How can I say that? We're in Sam's Club buying 1,700 Cinnabons. That's right, 1,700 Cinnabons. I wasn't on a diet. No, we're actually taking treats into the prison and we have to get one for all the inmates. So anyway, so 1,700 Cinnabons. And this lady sees our shirt. She comes and she goes, hey, are you the Free Inside people on the radio? They go, yeah. And she's speaking broken English, Spanish. And she goes, my husband, and this is the sad part, my husband and all my relatives. That means her husband and all her relatives are incarcerated in other facilities. They listen to the program. I've had emails and I've had letters from gangbangers out of La Familia gang, MS-13, who've given their life to Jesus because of the Jesus book, because of the Hawaii Pidgin language being spoken. Now, these guys aren't Hawaiian, they're Hispanic, but they can understand what's being said. That's the power of communication. And I'm just telling you, this project is so incredible. It's a legacy that will allow many, many more not to feel intimidated, but to feel empowered by something so powerful as the hope in the future that we give them in Keakua. Ba-rum-pum-pam.
Thank you, Bula. It's really, really fascinating to hear about how that's working, especially in Arizona and especially with different linguistic backgrounds. That's like really intriguing. And yeah, I would be fascinated to learn more. So let me just draw attention to one of the questions in the chat. I don't know, Earl, if you can see the chat,
Okay.
but one point that comes up, Bethany Schwartz pointed out, you know, how Pidgin is often a comedy language. And this is a dignified production, right? It's serious. And so can you talk about that? Like, was that challenging? Is that an ongoing challenge that Pidgin has some connotations with sort of non-seriousness or trivial or joking around, you know, and how you guys proceeded with that.
And I mean, if you live in Hawaii long enough, you know that most of the portrayals, right, of Pidgin is in comedy and all that. So yeah, we always have that. And people think, okay, why are you going then translate them into the Bible? That's like, hey, you gotta use the kind like formal English, right? So we get that. But as Bula shared, you go use formal English, that's going way over the head. The eyes not gonna light up, right? And so we know that if you're gonna have to communicate, you gotta communicate where people understand. And so, yes, this is a serious project, and this is probably the most serious audio production project of Pidgin that has come about. And so we want to create that light that this is a worthy project that is going to, you know, I mean, people going to listen to the Bible, they're going to laugh too, but they're going to cry too. They're going to like it like, whoa, bro, about speaking to me. And so, I mean, you know, I think when people get questioned, and we're not going to debate, you know, that. I mean, we have the background for communicate that, hey, this one legitimate way for communicate, get this kind of situation all across the world, you know, in this kind of low prestige, the kind of stigmatized language, right? Stigmatized language. I cannot even say them in English, you know what I mean? And so we understand that. So when we have opposition like that, which not too much, but we just tell them, you know what, just listen. Just listen to the recording and or read for yourself. And the Bible, I mean, when it's translated, it was translated well. I think at one question, was it translated from the King James Version? Or so that's a good question, because no, this was translated from the original language. And if you guys know the Bible, it's like, right, the New Testament is in Greek. We need somebody who would understand the Greek. That's Joe Grimes them. And then the Hebrew, and Joe Grimes them understand that too. So it was perfect that we had the source of the original language for them look at, for it translate in Hawaiʻi Pidgin. So always gonna get that opposition, but you know, if people even understand the Bible, the Greek that was used wasn't the kind of classical Greek, was the kind of everyday Greek. So go figure, you know, why we translate them to High Maka English if it was the kind of everyday Greek, you know? That's one disconnect there. So we figure the people of Hawaii, who, again, I think you tell Christina in your write-up for the Pidgin Coup, get 600,000 in Hawaii. Maybe of that 600,000, maybe get about 200,000 that, hey, only function deeply in Hawaii Pidgin. Those are the guys, this is the translation for them. You know what I mean? Plenty of people over here can understand standard English. We tell them, go read the standard English Bible there. You know what I mean? There are plenty like modern day translation, but this is for the guys that need them. And that's why I think for anybody who in that group, you know, they hear this, they're gonna understand.
Joel, you should ask your question.
Yeah, well, my question is right there, but I was wondering, after a couple of weeks ago, you and I had a conversation, I was wondering, how does this fit into the idea of HCE as a perhaps threatened language, in the sense that things are becoming much more modern and more homogenized? So do you hope that one of the aspects of this project will help to perpetuate a form of HCE that will be maintained? And also, I was wondering about the different dialects spoken, even on Oahu and versus the other islands of HCE.
That's a good question. Yeah. And so we, as we made decisions about the translation, we had to make fall, right? Because then we know the idea of decreolization. That's one big term, but decreolization, right? Where the Creole becomes more and more like the standard, right? Like English. So we had to make a decision where, right? We're going to do the acrolectal. That's the one more like standard English, or we're going to do the basilectal, more like the, the hardcore Pidgin. So we're going to decide, hey, we're going to reach the basilectal speakers, the ones that, you know what I mean, the speakers that live and breathe and function in Hawaii Pidgin. And then even you call HC, right? Hawaii Creole English. The reason why we will go identify them as Hawaii Pidgin, not Hawaiian now. Hawaii Pidgin is the Creole. What is that Creole? For the Pidgin speak Creole. It's the kind of food you eat in the kind of Louisiana. He said, no. But so we just say it's Hawaii Pidgin. And we take out English because it's not really English. but it's not Hawaiian. So we just decided Hawaiʻi Pidgin. And so, but yeah, getting back to your question, Joel. So yeah, we understand decreolization and we understand that, but we had to come up with a standard, right? We had to come up, make decisions. So we said, you know what? We would take the basilectal variety. I'm going to try our best for make all the grammar, all the prosody stuff. I mean, of course, in the rendering of it, will be all basilectal variety kind. I hope that answers your question, Joe.
I don't know, to people who are not familiar with Pidgin in Hawaii, like what you think of its intelligibility, you know, if you're new to this language, if you guys understood the recording that we played. To my ear, it's very English lexified, at least. And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about the choices of even just lexical items. And I noted a few just listening to it again, but like I did catch the 12 Israel Ohanas. I heard Ohana, and like the phrase, you know, to the max was interesting to me, because I think there's probably other options out there for how you could say that. Kent, you can chime in anytime. But like that's a choice, right? So like, what do you think about the vocabulary choice marking basilect?
I absolutely love the Kemochi Puka. That was a good one. I love that one.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm waiting for people to chime in, but that's a good question, Christina, that you asked, because as we were translating, we realized there are many options, right? In communicating in any language, you have so many options, but you know, at a certain point, you have to kind of make a decision on a certain way to render an idea, and then keep consistency, right? In certain contexts, right? If you're going to use it in this lexical item or this phrasing, then you probably want to use it in another setting. So that's how the Jesus book, 95,000 copies went out. So in the Good and Special book, that's a complete Bible, there is major revisions, things that we've learned through the process, and we have made those revisions to the Jesus book portion of the Good and Special book. And so a lot of decisions were made. I mean, I think in the Jesus book, we said, if you read the Jesus book, it says, Jesus said, and Jesus said, right? And I was like, we were looking at that, and it says, that's not how people talk. When you're telling story, he tell, or he go like this, so he tell like this. So that, just a small switch, we said, you know what, we got to make those changes. And I think even the idea of, you know, we have this Christianese word, Lord, right? What is Lord? We don't talk like that today. I mean, you say Lord, and you talk like that, mark you as one person who go to church, you know, when in the Christian community. So we said, yeah, that's not how you talk when you talk Pidgin. So how we gonna render that? So we said boss, but boss is like a negative, that kind of connotation. So we said, you know what? I think people understand. We would phrase them. We say, hey, the one in charge. Well, we all understand. Yeah, who in charge over here? Yeah, Christina, you in charge? You're not the Lord of the Pidgin Coup, but you're the one in charge, right? Ken, you're the one that before time he was in charge, I think, and you would go hand him off. But you know what I mean? So we would go, hey, that's good, that. So we would go make that as Lord, you know, and gets plenty of phrases like that. That, you know, we just kind of naturally, we go to church and we kind of we call them Christianese, yeah? You know what I mean? You say these words, oh, you mock yourself as a Christian or a person who go to church. So, you know, for the guys who we like communicate this with, we try to take those lexical items and go, you know what, is that real? Is that really Pidgin, or is that one churchy language? That's why I think one of the things I'm proud of in this Good and Special book, the back section, I think I'm going to show you some copies of the back section of the Good and Special book, going like glossary. It's not one exhaustive dictionary, but we took those Bible kind words, we call them, and we translate them so people can see, oh, that's how we made decision on how to render those complex ideas, you know, like planning kind, justification, you know, grace, repentance. You know, it's like, oh, that's that kind of Bible words. No, we don't talk like that today. But we had to make decision, and we can probably render them in many ways, but you know, at a certain point, we had to say, okay, this is how we're going to refer to that idea.
All right. Familiarity with the story would make it more intelligible, of course. So that's part of the package. I'm wondering if there's other questions, thoughts, follow-ups.
People's kid talk.
Hawaii style,
But-
that's Hawaii kind. I understand. You know
Yeah,
what I
I
mean?
know. Yeah, they don't like talk.
Yeah.
But so Earl, so
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing is that the Jesus book in the Good and Special book is you've edited, right? You've changed it from the original book, right? Okay. There's something that I wanted to add. It's not directly related to this, but so was the Before Jesus book ever came? Did that book ever come out on its own, or is just together with the Good and Special book?
Yeah. So we're telling people, go buy the Good and Special book. Not to say that the original Jesus book is not good. It's just we will learn plenty from the process of doing the we call them the Before Jesus book part, right? Which is the Old Testament, right? We
Right.
learn choke. So instead of going and buying the Jesus book, which is like 2000 version, just tell them go buy the whole thing, and you're gonna get the Jesus book and plus the other part, and so there's no more confusion. Yeah.
I wonder if you could talk about your experiences across the islands and what you've noticed about the ways that these texts or how people have engaged with the Pidgin access to these texts, right? Like, is it noticeably different on Oahu, or are you getting like a Pidgin geography because of the demand for it, or what you're seeing, what you're observing, like how people are taking it up?
Yeah. So I get input most of the time saying, "Oh, this is good," and we know there is regional or island varieties of lexical items. That we get that, and we had to make a decision again. You know, we some more Oahu Pidgin or Big Island or Maui Pidgin, and we understand even get like a little bit grammar differences. Big Island, you know, the guy Bino, Baguette. I said, wow, that's different. But so we had to make some choices. And so if anything, the write up in the forward part of the Good and Special book this is more, if people really want to study the differences, then maybe this more like West Side Oahu Pidgin, but still yet the translation team represent a good diversity of the different islands. So we try to cover our bases like that. And, you know, it's I think when people give comment, it's not negative necessarily, because I think you listen to Pidgin or you read them, again, that's why the audio gonna be so good, because it's gonna, you cannot render prosody, right? You can only render the text. So when you hear them, you gonna know that's Pidgin. You go any place in the world, something like if you're from Hawaii and you hear somebody talking Pidgin, your head turns, you go, hey. And any language, you identify that yourself in your heart. You're gonna go, wow, that's my language, that. And so that's why we know when it's read, regardless of maybe lexical differences, people gonna identify, you know, with the language.
Earl, I have another question. Maybe this question is for Christina, or are there others on here who know this? Are there, I mean, this is just an amazing project, but I'm wondering, is there anywhere else in the US where there is a creole / Pidgin that is getting this kind of support for its perpetuation and for possibility of doing research on that unique variety?
Not able to talk now.
Joel, do you mean in this area of like Bible translation, or
No, I just mean in general, you know, really big, large scale. I mean, this is a huge scale project, large scale project to perpetuate a specific sub-linguistic group within the United States or in the world. I mean, I know that the Bible translation is going on around the world, so I'm thinking more in the US.
Maybe Joe or Chuck can answer that. Do you know of any, like maybe in Gala or
Yeah,
Any other one?
Gullah has had the New Testament completed, and David
Gullah's
Frank
the border islands, right, in North Carolina? Or
in
South
North. Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Yeah, and one of the guys who helped coordinate that, David Frank, a friend of mine, had worked with Saint Lucia French Creole in the Caribbean before that, and so he knew about the need for advocacy and things like that. But I think Hawaii Pidgin with 600,000 speakers and maybe 200,000 with limited proficiency in standard English just outranks everything in that thing. My wife and Barbara, we just woke up in Eastern Indonesia, and we work with another stigmatized Creole here. And so for 20 years, we've been working on advocacy and translation and dictionaries. I'm also an adjunct professor of linguistics at the Australian National University. And so I've written papers about calking on the grammar of substrat languages and things like that. But the advocacy takes time, but we are seeing a massive shift over a 20-year period from being heavily stigmatized to starting to be accepted. And Barbara is also working in multilingual education pilot project in 6 languages, including Kupang Malay, which is the stigmatized Creole in the urban center. But we're only talking about 200,000 or 300,000 speakers, not 600,000 speakers here.
Wow.
Barbara and I have also been involved in advocacy with Ambon Malay, and that's got a separate translation project. The Kupang Malay has, we're on our 3rd edition of the dictionary, and we've done two editions of the New Testament, and that's online and on phone app as well. But the acceptability of using it in public is growing and growing and growing. And so now, you were talking about comedy earlier. One of the most popular things on YouTube is Kaboaks, which is a group of local guys who are just joking around and mocking standard Indonesian versus Kupang and how you would use them in different situations. And they put out a weekly YouTube thing, and it can have several 100,000 views in just a few days. So it's hitting a nerve, and we're seeing a lot of acceptability that we didn't see 20 years ago. So I'll stop now, but that gives you a glimpse about in academia, in education, in the church, in government. We even had the president of Indonesia on one of his rare visits to this part of the country greet local people in Kupang Malay. So that was a win.
Wow, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, there's lots of good examples, definitely outside of the US, where Creoles have been institutionalized increasingly. So Papiamento is another one in the Caribbean. It's spoken on more than one island, and there's sort of different policies, but like Curacao is one location, and it's becoming increasingly acknowledged in school as a medium of instruction. So creating materials in some schools, but not others. And, there's, of course, Papua New Guinea, Tokpisin, which has wide institutionalization. So we're in some ways at the beginning stages, even though we have lots of speakers here. And there's plenty of interesting social media to examine the valence, like how Pidgin is being taken up these days, but lots of that similar mocking of the mainlander, the sort of clueless Howley or what have you, right? To support Pidgin speaker perspectives. So it's interesting to look at that data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just to comment about Joel just just what you had to share about the Pidgin. You know, when I was in the program, and Charlene Sato would show us, you know, examples from Pidgin literature, the Hawaii Pidgin literature, right? Bamboo Ridge, and we would read it and analyze it. And now he's speaking standard English now. I guess I'm following, you see, Chuck, you just accommodate, right? So, and we didn't have many examples to analyze. Well, I hope that one application of this project will be not just the audio part that you can analyze for the prosody, which is a great thing, but also, you know, you'll have a document that you can use in the Pidgin classes or Pidgin classes about the grammar. You can see how it's used and how it's rendered, and to show a difference. You know, I think Siegel came up with, Kent, you and Siegel came up with a Pidgin grammar, right? So you can see if we're following the grammar of good Pidgin, you know, and I think this is a way that the students can also have access to a wide document, because the Bible is written in different kind of genres. You know, you have you know, narratives, you know, the storytelling, and then you have like some heavy duty kind of you know, arguments that somebody is writing. You know, this guy Paul had to write some arguments, and so we had to render it in that kind of a way that it would represent the way that you would express that in Hawaii Pidgin. So it will be a good document for analysis for sure.
That kind of leads me to a question. Is the audio, are you following the text itself in the audio, or are you just improvising?
Yeah, that's a good question, Professor Sakota, because I've been vetting people, right? And they ask, hey, is this guy improv or like ad lib? You know, so I'm laughing because some of these guys are local entertainers, right? I said, no, well, I'm thinking what you do, yes, you can just ad lib like that, but this is the Bible, so gotta read them, you know, as the text is rendered. Right. Yeah, so, and if there's a situation when a guy gets stuck, hey, that don't sound good, you know, then we're gonna have to bring in the language experts, you know, to say, well, let's just render it that way, but maybe we'll make note and we'll say maybe it can be rendered in a different way, and that's where we bring Chuck Grimes in as the consultant, with working with the native people like me to say, okay, let's consider what is being said. Maybe it's not correct, but what we have today has gone through rigorous edits and so I would hope that there is not much of the need to change the text, you know.
There's something that is on my mind. It's Pidgin, what you refer to basilactal Pidgin. There's something about it. I don't know how to put it. Okay, Pidgin people have a certain idea of what Pidgin sound like, and it's oftentimes based on what I term performance Pidgin. So it's like what you hear as comedians do, or you know, or people, particularly comedians, I think, right? Yeah, they'll use terms, they'll use terminology from that, you know, and people. I don't know how to put this. I'm trying to form the question. If people listening to the audio, right, they got to relate to what the audio is telling, right, basically. So if they hear a lot of words like stuff like maybe was in vogue years ago, or you know, was, you know, popular before, like slang, you know, things like slang, they might buy it in terms of Pidgin because they can connect to that, but it's not a immediate natural connection, I think, right? I mean, you wanna use a Pidgin that's actually being spoken in the community at the time, right? So that's
correct. Yeah. So very good.
I don't know how you would. Yeah, I'm not sure how you would control for that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, that's a good question, Kent, because you know, when we brought the translation team together and we realized, yeah, there are terms, you know, that were used in the second generation speaker community, right, of the original Creole, or the Hawaiʻi Pidgin, and that was like 100 years ago when you think about it, right? And or maybe 80. But when you think about it now, you know, there is some change, and some of those terms that were coined then may not be applicable today as people communicate in Hawaiʻi Pidgin. So we had to make and that's a good, that the translation team had their work cut out for them, because it's not like you can have various versions, right? I mean, you could, but we had to land somewhere, and that's a very good concern. We hope that the decision that we made would represent the best choices for the current Pidgin speakers of today. And yes, it will be a project, it will be a document to last for generations to come. And you know how translations are revised, or I mean, English translations all are revised. I think, you know, maybe not in my lifetime, but there'll be a project for the other Pidgin Coup people to talk about that will be a revision of the Good and Special book to represent the Pidgin of that day. But for now, this is the, you know, the current 2021 audio rendition, or 2020 version of what we feel is the best, you know?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm just, I guess in some way the thing, I just want you to be cautious in terms of like, so if somebody talking Pidgin, like how they would be talking Pidgin, and then you throw in certain kind of word or whatever, it kind of, people hear it. That's where the comedic effect comes in, I think, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
so the stereotype, right? It develops that stereotype, right?
Oh, yeah, I hear you, because I think first that a lot of times the effect is they laugh, ha ha, because, you know, it's like, oh, we heard that, yeah, you know, the guys went boss ass and was like, I understand boss ass when I use that, huh? Wow. And they listen and go, wow, that I understand now. So, you know, they can get that, because we hear these terms only in that kind of setting, right? Where it's comedy, but when it's used in a situation telling a story, you know, any type of theater, right? Yeah. You have this ha 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 moment, and you get the serious moment. That's where you draw them in through the humor, right? So I think it's the same way, Ken. I think we weren't translating for sake of theater. We wanted to translate in the intention of what was rendered back in the original day of the Greek and the Hebrew. And we just feel like it's the audience's now attempt to get the author's intent of what was rendered back then in the original language. So if it's comedic, then intent, then, you know.
Well, that's what I think. Okay. I mean, well, okay. Yeah, I was thinking, like, for example, the camel to the puka, right?
Yeah.
The needle, right? That to me, I mean, it wasn't comedic. I didn't laugh at that, but I thought to myself, wow, it really hit a spot, you know? That's the kind of thing you have to go for, I think.
Let me just say, you know, we had planned to wrap up around 1:20 because some people do have a university schedule to keep. We're happy to keep going for another 5-10 minutes and see who still wants to talk at that time. We'll probably stop the recording pretty soon, but feel free to sign off if you would like, if you gotta go, but feel free to stay on. And I want to just follow up Kent's point by asking, did you consult with the young people, right? Like the 20-somethings, and ask them how they talk? Because I think it gets at Ermiel's question here, you know, is there such a thing as a modern basilectal user? An urban, you know, young person, and how they talk if they identify as a Pidgin speaker.
Yeah, very good question. And we so wanted to have a cross section of the community, not just regional, you know, speakers, but also cross section of age groups. And, you know, I mean, when Joe was here, obviously he's in his 90s today, you know, celebrate his amazing longevity. But so, you know, a lot of the people he worked with were in his generation, and of course younger. I don't know if I'm the youngest one in the translation team, but we definitely wanted younger people to be involved, because this is the next generation of Pidgin speakers also that this translation is for. So again, we could have done more, I guess, of our diligence in getting the response of the younger generation. But we hope, again, the hope is that this will speak and communicate to all Pidgin speakers. And the next generation of younger generation is task is to say, you know what, in due time, there'll be a revision that takes place.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know, I'm so glad that that can take place to represent the heart of the way people speak the language today. And it's definitely different from English, we know. Yes, there's decreolization that's happening, but we know that the Bible is a document to be understood deeply. So we understand that we want to definitely have any translation that's produced around the world, and of course for us in Hawaii, that will speak to people's heart. You know what I mean? So yes, Ken, I hear you. And but again, you know, it's not like we could make several translations. We made one translation, and that's a decision that we had to make as a translation team, and we're open for criticism. You know, those next generation of people, speakers, and people who have a heart for this will take that on for the next project.
I'm sure that's true for other texts, though, in that, you know, when high schoolers are reading plays written in the 1950s or whatever, right? It's stretching them in terms of the language differences. They don't necessarily use the language that they're reading, so there's always a gap, and you can't avoid it, really. It's gonna happen. It might be a little bit more obvious with Pidgin because of the social issues around it in schooling. Yeah.
Plus the rapid change in Pidgin as well too, right? Much faster than English.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of an ongoing discussion that we've been having for years now in terms of, you know, what Pidgin should be representational, or, you know, what should be not necessarily standardization of, but in terms of, you know, what it entails. So Christina talks about the young people's Pidgin, you know, and I generally, people always represent me as the old people's Pidgin people. But I think they are, what's happening is that young people's Pidgin is in fact incorporating a lot of English into it, right? I mean, that's a process of decreolization that you mentioned, right? So to some aspect, I think in some respects, I think you want to maintain some of the Pidgin forms. I mean, that's really very distinct from English. I think it doesn't necessarily, it's not that it's really foreign. I think it's foreign if people don't know it, right? So I talk about this thing now, you know, change is acceptable. I mean, that's, you know, that's a truism of languages, right? That they change, you can't help it, right? But I'm wondering if change through attrition, change through loss is actually a good thing or not, right? So like, you know, like people are losing some of the, maybe certain grammatical structures of Pidgin, right? By incorporating English kinds of grammatical structures. The same thing the Hawaiian going through too, right? The kinds of arguments that are coming up. So it's not a simple, there's no simple answer. I mean, it's almost like bit by bit, you gotta work on these things, you know, kind of thing, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I hear you, Ken. And that's why I think this is a great start, because we have something that can be analyzed for generations to come, not just
Right.
the written,
Right,
but
right.
the audio,
Yeah.
because I think a big feature of any language is not just, you cannot render a language just by the written form. It has to be heard.
Right.
And that's the prosody part that we capture in the audio that you cannot get in the written form. And I just know that when you have the good speakers that are going to render it well, I think for generations to come, that doesn't change so much, in my opinion, the way Pidgin sounds. Yes, different lexical items, the phrasing, but the way it sounds totally marks us as people from Hawaii when people speak Pidgin. And that's why I'm so excited about this project, that we'll have something for generations to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good place to sort of officially end. And Kristen, if you don't mind stopping the recording. So thanks for joining.